Hi, welcome to the premiere episode of Gospel Truths, where in each episode I try to share some fascinating and often overlooked insight into the Gospels. My name's DJ, and this week I'm going to be talking about the Sermon on the Mount, and specifically how the Sermon on the Mount, which begins with the Beatitudes, actually appears to be structured by them in reverse in a way that might be overlooked often. We got the opening statement in Matthew 5 about Jesus beginning to teach, gives the Beatitudes in Matthew 5, 3-10. We're going to look at these as we go through, how they structure the sermon in reverse. First one's, blessed are the persecuted because of righteousness, theirs will be the kingdom of heaven. Matthew 5, 11-20 begins immediately. Blessed are the persecuted. Are you when you're persecuted? Falsely people say things against you. Talks about the prophets before you being persecuted. So immediate time, clearly there. At the end, Jesus talks about how your righteousness should be surpassed that of the Pharisees. You will enter the kingdom of heaven. That's two of the key themes of Beatitude. You can look more at the specifics in here, see how it relates to the different themes of Beatitude. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. If your brother has something against you, first be reconciled to your brother. Make friends quickly with your opponent. Clearly, peacemaking activities, some of the teachings above here are the opposite of that. Name-calling, things like that, they're the opposite of peacemaking. You can check out more of the details in the presentation of that. Let's go to the next one. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Next section of the sermon. Everyone who looks at a woman with lust for her in his heart has already committed adultery with her in his heart. So impurity of heart, the opposite of the Beatitude, and says, get rid of a body part rather than have your whole body thrown into hell because of impurity. So the impure in heart get thrown into hell. It's the opposite of the Beatitude, which says the pure in heart, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Next section, little bit there talks about more about adultery, that kind of impurity. And then next little bit talks about false vows. Now the connection between being pure in heart and false vows is clear from Psalm 24, 3-4, which talks about being in God's presence because you have a pure heart, and how one of the two key parts of that is not swearing deceitfully. This psalm might actually be the source of this Beatitude in general, but it shows the connection between those two subjects there. Let's go to the next one. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Here it talks about not an eye for an eye, but actually being merciful unto those who bother you, those who do things bad to you, those who ask things of you, those in need. Also loving your enemies and praying for them. Clearly about mercy there. Clear tie-in. You can look at the details in the presentation. Let's go to the next one. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. They will be filled. Here it's talking about beware of practicing your righteousness before men to be noticed by them. Otherwise you have no reward with your Father in heaven. Again, it's the opposite of the Beatitude. It's about how you pursue your righteousness. If you pursue it in a way just to be seen by God, He'll reward what He sees you do in secret. It talks about that in terms of prayer, fasting, helping other people. Clearly this is all about what this Beatitude is about here. Let's go to the next one. Blessed are the meek, they will inherit the earth. This appears to come from Psalm 37:11, similar to the impure in heart thing with the false vows connection from that psalm. But the meek will inherit the land and enjoy peace and prosperity. If you look at Psalm 37 and some of the themes here, righteousness versus wealth, do not fret, rather wait on the Lord, and God's providence observed in nature. All these themes are the ones we see in the teachings of this next section of the sermon. Do not store up yourself treasure in heaven, cannot serve both God and wealth. Therefore, do not worry about your life. Look at the birds of the field. On and on there. So this clearly, this psalm, which is the source of Beatitude, can explain the content here and how it's all connected. Let's go to the next one. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Got to understand the meaning of the word mourn here in the Greek. And if we look back in 1 Corinthians 5, 1-2, we get to see that word in action and clarifies the meaning. It's talking about sin and mourning over one's own sin and one's part in a sinful situation. Keep that in mind. You look back at this part of the sermon, it's talking about why do you look at the speck in someone else's eye and not look at the one in your own. So it is talking about acknowledging and seeing and having sorrow for one's own sin. So there's the connection. Let's go to the next one. Blessed are those poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Anytime you're poor, you have some kind of need. If you keep that in mind, look at this part of the sermon. It makes sense. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you'll find. Knock and the door will be open. God's able to basically provide for your needs and willing to do so. You can just take them to Him. So there's that connection. You can look at the presentation for more details. And with that, all the 8 Beatitudes have now been addressed. What's left of the sermon? Very next part after addressing that last Beatitude. So in everything, do to others what you have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets, a summary statement. Then we've got 3 closing teachings, all about basically 2 paths, narrow gate versus the broad gate, false prophets in sheep's clothing versus those who truly bear good fruit, those who listen to the words are like, and actually apply them, are like those who build a house on rock versus those who listen and don't do anything, like those who build a house on sand. Those three teachings close the Sermon on the Mount. This is the little statement at the end. People were amazed at the teachings. Why this is cool. Check out how not only this explains the structure of the sermon, but how the sermon helps to better explain what the Beatitudes mean, because it's actually fleshing out their meaning. You can look at some of the details here in the presentation. And that's the end. I've got the reference here for where I've gotten this content. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys next time on Gospel Truths. Thanks.